Hi, so now I'm going to demonstrate how to create a typographic border using ornaments that are built into different typefaces. You can see here in Illustrator that I've already selected a handful of typefaces that I know have ornaments built into them. And with a little bit of research, you can find a lot of different ornaments that are built into typefaces. So if we look up here at the top, Adobe Caslon is a typeface that, typically we just think of it as a serif type family, but also built into that larger type family, they do have an ornaments package. So if you look through here, this is literally just, if I change the typeface, you can see this is just the alphabet just typed out. So all I've done here is typed, A through Z, and then typed the numerals. And then if I just change that typeface to Adobe Caslon Ornaments, you can see that those letters become little ornaments and kind of border elements. So you can always search through all the different ornament options within a given typeface by clicking up here on type and then opening up your glyphs palette, and that will bring up this window that shows you all of the different ornament options that are built into that particular typeface. So again, here we can see Adobe Caslon's options. If I scroll down here to this arabesque ornaments type family and open up glyphs, you can see it shows me a different set of options. Depending on the size of the ornament family, you may have a ton of glyphs to choose from, or sometimes you'll have fewer options. And you can see in some instances I have these little black dots, which means that really that's just kind of you can just ignore those. Those aren't really available options. So that's what we'll use to start out with. Down here I have just selected the arabesque ornaments, and in particular I just went and grabbed two individual ornaments that I thought paired well together. What you'll notice is in a lot of these ornament families is that you'll see certain sets of ornaments like these two here that clearly look like they're meant to belong together. And we can notice that again up here in Adobe Caslon Ornaments. So we'll see there's this interesting border that has like a little wrapping vine around it. So not all of these ornaments will pair together equally well. So you have to kind of hunt through and see that this one pairs up with this and that pairs up with this corner option. So sometimes there will just be horizontal borders. Sometimes there will be these corner elements that pair up with those horizontal versions. And that's going to be different for every typeface you look at. All right, so now that we have our ornament selected, as I said, I kind of pre-chose these two. I'm going to convert them from being live type, and I'm going to turn it into outlines. So yeah, I go up to type and scroll down to create outlines. That will transform it from being a live typeface to just a piece of vector artwork. So I'm not going to delete all these because we don't need them anymore. And here I have my page area all set up. This is set up to 7 inches by 5 inches, which is the page size for our recipe cards that we're creating. You'll also notice that I've already created a box here that's inset equally around. Yeah, so that'll kind of serve as my margin. What I'm going to do is select that box and then go up here to view, and if I scroll down to guides and go make guides, I can actually transform that piece of artwork, that rectangle, into guides for my page. So that'll just help me to not accidentally click on that shape, and I can just use that to establish my margins. So the next thing to do here is, a lot of you know that I tend to rely on math pretty heavily. It's just something that's going to help us to get the spacing of this border worked out really nicely. So the live area that I have to work with is 6 inches wide by 4 inches tall. I'm just going to, for the sake of really easy math, create a border where all the elements are 1/4 of an inch wide, because that'll just divide very evenly into 6 inches and 4 inches. So if I go to this first corner element that I've selected. I'm going to make my border, it's going to be a little bit big, but I will turn this into 1/4 of an inch wide. And then I'm going to make this one also 1/4 inch wide. You can come up with more complicated math if you would like to. I'm just doing this for the sake of ease here. So I have this border. I have these two things lined up the way I want, and I'm actually, upon thinking about it a little bit further, I'm going to make this shape just a little bit shorter than that, a little bit shorter than 1/4 of an inch, and that will allow just a small gap between each one. And so now that this is slightly under 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to just select it, and then if I hit the return button, that will pull up this move window, and I'm now going to move that horizontally 1/4 of an inch, and then if I just hit copy, that will duplicate it, and that'll keep the spacing really consistent. I can always hit Command D to duplicate that further. So in Illustrator, anytime you do an action, you can always repeat that action by simply hitting Command D. And so I can hit Command D multiple times here until I have the width of my border. And here's another little trick that I recommend, which is if I create a large rectangle that's around the entirety of my page area, and if I make sure the center of that rectangle is perfectly centered on my page, which in this case is 3.5 inches on the x-axis and 2.5 inches on the y-axis. So and you get those numbers by dividing 7 inches wide divided by 2 is 3.5, 5 inches tall divided by 2 is 2.5. So anyway, if I have that rectangle there, I can grab this corner element here along with my rectangle and double click on this reflect tool and then reflect it across the vertical axis and hit copy. And you can see that that created the opposite corner here. And then I'll do the same. So I'm going to now select the entire upper border and select my rectangle. Click on the reflect tool again. Now I'm going to mirror it on the horizontal axis, and that automatically gives me my top and bottom border there. And I can then basically just repeat the same steps that I did with my top and bottom border, now just using my horizontal one. So I'm being a little bit quick and a little bit sloppy here, but you can always kind of pay attention to your measurements here. So like, for instance, I know the left edge of this ornament is set at 0.75 inches, and that means the top edge of this one also needs to be set at 0.75 inches. And I can basically just take these same two measurements and just flip the numbers. And that'll make sure that these two things are spaced perfectly evenly from one another. So now I can grab that, click on it, again hit the return key, and now we want to do 1/4 of an inch down instead of horizontally. And now I can hit copy and then duplicate multiple times. Now I'm going to select all of those, select that outer rectangle again, mirror this horizontally, copy that, and there I have my decorative border. We can obviously supplement this and edit it further. We can add, secondary lines or whatever we would want to do to kind of further enhance the decorative effect. But in terms of how to use the ornaments and how to understand working with spacing, that's the gist.